How's it going? This is Chris.
This is Eric.
And we are your Alternative Millennial Podcast. Brand new, first episode. We're actually coming from the Dream Center, the DMG Dream Center in North Carolina, Clayton to be exact. How's it going, man?
Doing good, Chris. How you doing today?
Doing good. Excited to get this off the ground.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about it for quite some time, and that's actually coming to fruition.
Finally here, yeah.
So go over a few things today, what we want to talk about and what we're all about. The Alternative Millennial Podcast, we want to bring, kind of a platform for like and unlike-minded people to have a peaceful dialogue. Talk about multiple different things, any topics that affect the millennial generation. We're going to do an ads. All of our ads are going to be based on small business platform. We think the small businesses need a better voice and a bigger voice, and the bigger companies don't give that voice. So we're gonna touch on a few things on that. You have anything on your mind, man?
No, just happy to be here. Finally getting this off on the right track.
Sounds good. All right. So cover a few things real quick. We do have our email. Our email is ampodcast1@gmail.com. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, or if there's any topics you want us to cover, please give us some ideas. Let us know if you're interested in any ads. A couple different things we're going to cover. We're going to have a business spotlight or a small business spotlight segment in each episode. I think that's a pretty good thing to cover.
Absolutely.
We're going to highlight some local businesses, and Eric kind of brush up and he'll talk more about what he's interested in. So I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself, and I'll introduce myself, some short introductions, and then we'll get off on today's topic.
All right. Yeah, like Chris said, my name is Eric. I'm a big tech guy. I like all things nerdy, gaming, technology, all the stuff like that. I also am a big microbrew guy, which brings us back to the small businesses. I like to enjoy the local breweries around here, especially the New Belgium guys. I'm a big fan of them. So we'll be talking about them. I would like to do a spotlight in every couple episodes, try something new, give you guys feedback, let you know. But yeah, I'm me. I'm tech. I'm beer. That's what I do.
Nice. It's always good to have a tech guy on your side.
You got
I'm
that right.
Somewhat of a tech guy myself. I enjoy technology. I get into a little deeper thought. I like philosophy. I'm big into guns. I think that was probably one of my fortes is hunting, fishing. I grew up in a very rural setting, so hunting, fishing is a lot of my background. Aside from that, spending time with my wife. It's always a blast. My animals. We have 2 fur kids. Anyway, and then another kid on the way, an actual kid. Anyway, so enough about me, enough about Eric. Getting a little bit more about what we want to do. So today's topic, I'd like to kind of explain the alternative millennial and how Eric and I came up with the concept. Literally, we were sitting at Starbucks talking about an idea because we both wanted to be on a podcast. We both wanted to have a platform for our opinion and a platform for what we wanted to talk about. And I think it was 5 minutes?
If that. 5
minutes we talked about it, and we're like, okay, what topics should we cover? And Eric is definitely one on pop culture. I don't get veer into more pop culture, and we actually differ a little bit in every aspect, political aspect, a lot of different aspects. So we vary a little bit, and that's what we want the Alternative Millennial to be. This needs to be a platform for people like-minded and unlike-minded to come together and talk about tough subjects and subjects that affect millennial generation. I'm on the older side of the millennial generation. I'm actually 31, I was born in 86. And Eric?
I am 27, so I'm on the later end of things.
So it kind of shows you a little bit. We got a little bit of coverage there. But, the typical millennial generation, you're looking at 19 to 33 on average, based on Wikipedia, that there's some variance there. And they consider the millennial generation echo boomers. And according to Wikipedia, they typically use the early 1980s as a starting birth years and the mid-90s to early 2000s ending birth years. So also call millennials echo boomers.
Which is a weird name. I don't like being associated with baby boomers.
That actually brings up part of the conversation that I really wanted to get into. So I think our generation is primarily, I think it's very misunderstood.
Absolutely.
I think we get the short end of the stick. It's a bad reputation to be classified as a millennial nowadays, and I think we get the short end of the stick on that. A lot of negative attributes and negative behaviors are attributed to millennials simply because when you see all the memes.
Right.
I mean, have you ever experienced anything personally as far as classifications or stereotypes of being a millennial?
Being a millennial, well, I don't go out much, so not usually, but just knowing the fact that I see all these stories where it's, millennials are killing this, or they can't do things because the millennials did that. It sucks being part of that generation, because that's all you have is a negative connotation about it.
I'll be honest with you, man. I'm guilty of it myself. I do it all the time. Oh, those damn millennials.
Exactly.
So I'm guilty myself. So, but I think that there are a lot more to millennials than meets the eye, and I think we need to be a voice for our generation. I think there's a lot that could be covered with millennials that show what the positivity we can bring to the world. After all, I found a meme that I actually enjoyed, and it was funny because it said something about millennials, but then it also underneath this, it talked about, well, who created the millennials, who raised the millennials.
Right.
So it's kind of entertaining when you see baby boomers damning the millennials, but then in reality,
millennials all want a participation trophy, but who gave them to us? The baby boomers.
So if you guys are listening, you're a baby boomer. We have nothing against you. However, just keep in mind that you did contribute to the problem. So I consider us, Eric and myself, I'll speak for us personally. We're a bit more the hardworking end. My dad and my grandpa were both very hardworking, told me nothing would come to life and for free. How true was that? So I don't consider us to be any of the stereotypical millennials, but at the same time, these personality traits were given to us by the generation before us that raised us.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that was something that I wanted to address as far as the millennial standpoint and what the name Alternative Millennial stands for. So that was a very challenging name session. So anyway, what else you got to cover, man?
I just wanted to see how millennials are changing the way things are and trying to get rid of that negative connotation. But with everything, you take 2 steps forward, you take 1 step back. So for every good thing we do, it seems like somebody's out there to push us in a negative for it.
Yeah.
So you got these local businesses are popping up left and right. Baby boomers don't want that. They want the consistency. They want the big chains and whatnot. The millennials are kind of focusing on getting away from that. They want to create their own businesses within.
You see a big shift in that too. I don't know if it's a millennial generation, but you definitely see the younger generation going towards those smaller businesses, innovation. There's a lot of innovation with the younger generations, and not that there wasn't for the baby boomer generation or generations before us. The generations that preceded us gave us the platform for what we have to work with. But you definitely see a shift of, especially in business.
Yeah.
I see a huge shift. There's no more pensions. There's no more companies standing around with pensions. You're not going to go to work and get a guaranteed pension salary anymore.
Right.
When you retire, you don't have a guaranteed pension. So there's a huge shift in that. The small pop-ups too. You talk about that. There's a lot of that in the tech industry.
It's huge.
So
it's how it thrives.
Yeah, the microbrewery. We talked about that.
Yep.
You mentioned you like the microbreweries. There's a lot of the millennial generation has definitely come up with some great things. Let's talk about stuff like Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon was huge.
Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, he's in the millennial generation. So it's kind of interesting to see how a lot of that has changed and evolved.
Right. Instead of waiting around for somebody else to do it, people are just putting in that initiative and making it happen for themselves now.
Yeah.
And look at your restaurants. They're dying. Like the big chains are pretty much dying out just because somebody wanted this specific thing, so they created their own, and now it takes off. So now you get these local indie restaurants, which are taking over compared to your Applebee's or whatnot.
Right. So. I think a lot of that's leads into our universities too. I don't know if you personally. I have a 4-year degree, and going through a 4-year degree was very awkward, almost kind of difficult too. You meet some interesting people.
Oh, absolutely.
And being my age, I went through when I was older. I was 26 when I started college. It's a very intriguing experience when you talk to someone and, you have to go to work today. Yes, I work full time.
Yeah.
So
you definitely get different walks of life that way.
So it's actually a lot easier to attend a 4-year university and see what people talk about in the stereotypical millennial. That's really where I saw it. I saw it all the time. People, mom and dad are. They got to pay my tuition bill. Mom and dad, they did this, and 24 years old and never had a job.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine.
Blew my mind. It really blew my mind. It was actually kind of disgusting, but it's to each their own.
Exactly.
I worked full time. Worked at Worked at AT&T. I worked a couple different places. I did Uber, did everything I could to cover the bills, and went to school.
I was driving around delivering auto parts for Napa, and I worked at a local hardware store.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure we don't cover the stereotype one in that.
That's not as much, no.
But anyway, continue with the topic of alternative millennial. Another piece that we mentioned that we were going to get into, especially small business. I think small business needs a bigger voice per platform. Maybe this is the millennial in us, but I definitely think that they need a bigger platform for advertisement.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of your conglomerates nowadays are glorifying big corporations versus glorifying some of the smaller businesses. And smaller businesses make up 80% of business in general.
Yeah.
So your smaller businesses are what really drive your communities. So it's a huge thing. Actually, here in Clayton or in Raleigh in general. So, I've been to Charlotte. North Carolina is just filled with awesome small businesses.
Yeah.
Asheville's amazing. So. You ever been to Asheville?
I have not. If it's not in the Triangle area, I haven't been there.
Yeah, you got to go, man. Asheville is cool. The Triangle. What interests you in the Triangle?
I mean, it's a huge tech boom right now. I mean, there's some big corporations there, but that means there's people. It's drawing the people into the area to help with these startups and these small tech companies get going. Because you got big guys like IBM are attracting all the top tier people, but then they see opportunity in that small business. So it's thriving right now with what's going on out there.
I wonder where that's going to lead us. We always think about technology. I mean, well, here we are. I got my Note 8.
As do I.
So I just upgraded, actually. That was a hard decision for me. I was going to go either iPhone or go back or keep Android, and I decided to keep Android, and I'm actually glad I did now.
Glad you stayed on the light.
Yeah, it was a better price point. But anyway, I guess it kind of goes into technology. But as far as technology goes, I'm kind of curious where that's going to lead us. I know when I was with previous company I worked for, we sold internet service, so we dealt with technology quite a bit. It might have been IBM or Panasonic. Somebody was working on a screen that gave out vibrations. When you touch something, you could feel the texture of a picture. So,
interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. But I wonder where that innovation is going to lead, especially like in the tech industry, where that's going to go to.
It's going to lead us to some great spots, but it's also going to put us down some real dark paths too.
Yeah. That's a very good possibility. I mean, what kind of dark paths can you think of?
I mean, you just look at the big political field right now. You could think of tech is driving a lot of this just because of all the Russian hacking and stuff like
Privacy
that.
issues,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, every government agent knows everything about you, whether you like it or not.
And it is actually kind of terrifying.
It is.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I'm reading articles about how these nanobots are taking out cancer inside a human body. So it's going both ways in such extremes. It's unbelievable.
When you can't, and I know we have a later segment of this, but we'll touch on it anyway. You can't ignore AI.
Oh, no, not at all.
Artificial intelligence is something that we are on the doorstep of. And it's rather terrifying because all the movies you see about AI,
it never ends well.
Yeah, you go back to iRobot, you go back to any of these movies, and just to let you guys know, Eric is a big pop culture buff, so a big movie buff. I can't say much because my favorite movies are Gone in 60 Seconds and John Wick.
Good movie. Never saw John Wick.
Oh man, you're missing out.
I know.
So
yes, I will go on tangents about movies you've never heard of. I apologize.
Yeah, I think mentioning AI, definitely I'm still kind of blown away by some of the technology, some of the robots they have. I think there was I don't have a source in front of me, but I believe it was a YouTube video I saw of a robot telling us how the human race was doomed based off algorithms.
Yep.
So that was quite interesting. It made me a little nervous.
It's machine learning. Machine learning is not quite there yet, so it's making things terrifying.
Yeah.
I think it was Google who did the Twitter bot. People could communicate. The bot would learn from how people were responding to it, and within a day, they'd take it down because people just destroyed this robot with just hate speech nonstop because that's how it was learning from our society.
God. Wow.
So
that's crazy.
It's a scary thought at times.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, I was watching. There was another video. I reference YouTube videos a lot, guys. I apologize, but
we're content creators. That's where we get our content.
Yeah. But anyway, YouTube video that I saw also mentioned it was quote me on this. I think it was Sessions talking about how there was a political scandal where somebody was they treated him as some kind of criminal, so they could spy on him, and they were part of the media. This was back in the Bush administration.
Okay.
They talked all about it, and just by deeming him or a court bringing him in for charges or something, he was deemed as a criminal, and they could spy on all his. They subpoenaed all his Gmails, all his information, and they were literally spying through the media. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of crazy.
Absolutely.
And there's been accusations of the Obama administration doing it too. So it was really interesting to hear that, and one simple thing could change, like one simple accusation and
could just
one charge.
Yeah,
and that's everything. I don't know about you. Like my phone has everything in it about my life. So, I'm reading notes for this podcast off my phone.
If I ever lost my computer or my phone, that's all my information. Ever.
Yeah. It's my hard drive too, and it goes back to the days when my grandma would take pictures and store them in a picture album.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore. So now it's how often have you back up your phone?
my life is saved on Facebook, and that's not a good thing, but it's just what it is nowadays.
Yeah, very true. I think Facebook is pretty much what people's lives are nowadays, unfortunately. And I think that is something else that might be in another podcast session, but we can touch on as well. I think that's something very vital to talk about when you talk about the millennial generation, is the turn from, a non-tech world to constantly and always being connected.
Digital lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it, there's actually been some research showing that the depression is higher in teenagers who are constantly connected than teenagers who are not. And now I'll let you guys know my background is in psychology, so I will reference psychology quite a bit. Hope you don't mind.
My background's in game design. It's not going to help out much here, so you go ahead.
They're not too far apart, though. Think about computers and the brain and how they work. They're very similar.
Very similar, yeah.
Anyway, they talk about teenagers and how connected they are, and how much depression has risen in these teenagers doing these studies. And it made me think, as I'm reading this, I'm flipping through it, I'm going, oh, wow, I'm on my phone reading this. It's kind of interesting. It's like, that's not me. That'll never be me. And I'm swiping, going through, that's not me.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm reading this on my phone, sitting next to my wife. Like,
it's your surreal moment, yeah. You're being social, but you're still connected.
Very much so. Very much so. It's kind of disappointing to realize that I am that statistic as far as, not necessarily depression, but I'm the statistic where I'm that person on my phone sitting next to my wife.
Right.
It was a little surreal. Then I look over and see her on her phone. And I will say, before you guys throw millennials under the bus for being connected, I see more older people now on Facebook on their phone posting cat videos than anybody else out there.
My grandmother goes to town with her tablet. She's on there all the time.
I mean, you go to a family reunion and you look around, and I guarantee you 50 plus, they are all on their phone.
Absolutely. Got to take the pictures, got to post them to Facebook, tag everybody.
Candy Crush.
Candy Crush.
Oh, man, it's funny to see the amount of Facebook, too, and Facebook posts. Mom, I know you'll listen to this. I love you to death. But Facebook posts, I have so many in the older generation that just love tagging people and just constant videos every 15, 20 minutes. So I love you, but hey, I got to call it as it is. But what other outtakes do you have on the digital lifestyle? I mean, just being connected constantly.
It's a two-sided coin. And the one side, I'm connected with people that I would have lost contact with years ago if this didn't exist. I mean, I've moved 30-ish times in my lifetime.
Wow.
I have friends that I'm going back to like first grade now and reconnecting with because I have this platform for it now. But on the other side of things, people that I would never want to talk to again are constantly on there. And it brings bad memories of stuff like that. So on one hand, I want to stay on, talk with these people. On the other hand, I want to get rid of it completely so these people that I don't want in my life anymore can't contact me anymore.
Do you ever get that weird anxiety when you go to block someone or remove someone? Am I a bad person?
Are they going to see this? I don't want to start anything.
It's a good thing Facebook doesn't send them a notice saying, hey, somebody has removed you as a friend.
Well, that was, oh dear, this was a few years ago. And I need to have a source on this, but there was I believe it was a fast food chain was giving out free food if you went on, publicly announced you were deleting these people off your Facebook and then deleted them, showed them proof, and they gave you free food for it. It was fantastic.
Oh, goodness. And by the way, this is not a strict news source. We're going to throw some things out there we've heard, so just to remind you guys, I do that all the time. If it's something very important, we will bring up sources.
It's a good lesson. Just because you heard it somewhere doesn't mean it's true. Do your research.
Absolutely. There's so much misinformation out there nowadays.
Thanks to Facebook.
Well, yeah, more than just Facebook. And I love
That's where that panic gets so...
You know the one day that people fact check everything? April Fool's Day.
Yeah,
that's the only
absolutely.
day they fact check everything. I've gone on Facebook and I've seen people post the same jargon they posted on Facebook and they'll comment different things. One is like, "Oh, this is unbelievable! I can't believe they did this." The next one is like, "Is this real?"
Yeah,
like treat every day as if it's April Fool's Day.
Exactly.
That's coming up, so you guys pay attention to that. Look very, very closely. April Fool's Day, you will see people questioning everything on Facebook. April 2nd, they don't question anything.
It's all face value.
That's. I think that's another thing of getting into the tech side of it and being digitally connected. It's kind of unbelievable how much misinformation. It's a highway. You have to search for the truth now. It used to be being connected digitally, you could transfer truth a lot easier. You could talk about things. And that just doesn't exist anymore.
No, everybody with a keyboard can post whatever they want.
Yeah, keyboard warriors.
The huge population will take it as face value.
Yeah, very
it's
true.
Scary.
Yeah, I think the traffic of misinformation is something we definitely have to face. We definitely have to challenge, and that's another reason I wanted to start this, the series on this podcast and talk about certain things. I feel like our generation has a much harder time, and I try not to get too political, although I do talk about politics. Those are the two things I love talking about: politics and religion. And everybody else says don't talk about them. So I'll revert to politics occasionally. But one thing that I think our generation really needs to work on is how to have conversation with one another.
Absolutely.
We've talked about who we're going to bring in. We're definitely going to bring in people in here who we disagree with or who disagree with us, and we're going to have hard conversations. So these podcasts aren't just going to be all about your favorite, Breakfast Club movie, or it's not going to be about all media. We're actually going to have some good conversation. We're going to have some tough conversations, and that's one thing we wanted to do because I believe our generation definitely work on how we talk to one another. I remember watching my grandpa talk with some of his friends, people he disagreed with and agreed with alike, and they had good conversation, hard conversation. I mean, they disagreed to the point where they get red in the face, but then afterwards they shook hands and they were best friends.
Right.
So we just don't have that. We don't value that anymore, and I think a lot of that could be taken out of context, but I'm going to say it anyway. A lot of that goes back to some of the situations we're seeing, the unfortunate events like in Parkland, the Columbine massacres. I think a lot of these school shootings and a lot of this comes from the lack of value of life. We just don't value each other anymore.
Yeah.
Like you and I can sit here and talk about political stuff, and we can easily disagree. We probably do disagree on stuff. But at the end of the day, if I don't value your life, then who have we become?
Yeah, what's it for?
Yeah, I mean, it's systemic, and I seriously think that's a problem that we're facing. We'll definitely talk about this more in future episodes, but it's one thing that I would like to address, and it's one I think it's one driver of this podcast and Alternative Millennial in general. Just because we need to learn to talk to one another with an open conversation, whether it be about cool stuff or the hard conversations. Right. And you'll hear all kinds of stuff come up, and we'll talk about abortion. We'll talk about all the hot topics. We'll talk about gun control. We'll talk about all the hot topics. You'll get different ideas from me, different ideas from Eric. Me personally, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. I don't mind at all. I am a bit more conservative, definitely more conservative when it comes to economics. I'm a bit more liberal with social issues. You could classify me, if you had to label me, I don't like labels because I'm more down the road, middle of the road.
Because they don't mean anything nowadays. Right.
I'm more towards libertarian with some different, ideas thrown in there, more constitutionalist, if you will. However, if you had to label me, that's kind of the way I would be labeled. But and I know you're probably same on some of the issues,
for the most part, yeah. But I lean a little left, but like I said, the labels don't mean anything nowadays because you say you're left, you're a left wing, alt to the extreme. You hate everything the right wing does, and that's not the case. Yeah, I go both ways on so many subjects.
If you say you're a liberal nowadays, you're Karl Marx.
Right.
If you say you're right wing nowadays, you're a Nazi.
Like exactly.
There is no in between, and we can benefit that. I think open dialogue and people that listen to open dialogue, on the hard topics, I think will definitely help out. And it blows my mind too when people comparing just a conservative to a Nazi or a leftist to a
social,
to Karl Marx. It's just those are such extreme ideologies. It's kind of unbelievable. So something fun we realized. Take a little lighter note. Our acronym for our podcast is AMP.
AMP for the podcast.
Pretty exciting. So Any other ideas that you things you wanted to cover into the introduction podcast?
I think we covered a decent amount for the intro, what we're at, kind of planting the seed of what's to come. I mean, like you said, there's going to be a lot of subjects that we get into, and yes, there will be hard subjects, but I'm going to try to bring things back at the end with the lighter stuff. Yeah. Just to kind of mellow things out a bit, just because you get hardcore into some of these.
I do. I get passionate.
Heavy political things.
Real passionate.
And it's
People
awesome.
are going to learn quick.
Yes.
So.
And then I'm going to bring it back and say, what's good in theaters this week.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well,
it's a good balance.
I think that's another good thing to address too. And we talked about this again, sitting at Starbucks, that meeting we had. We sat down and we talked about it. I hate the word unbiased conversation.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as unbiased. Your biases are your morals. That's what drives your values.
Exactly.
So it's ingrained in who you are. So to sit down and say I'm going to have an unbiased conversation, I think is a bit. I think it's. I don't know. I don't think it's a correct term to use. I think it's sabotaging the conversation when you say I'm going to have an unbiased conversation. Right. So me personally, I am biased. I'm biased towards my values.
Exactly.
Every human is. We all have implicit biases. We all have, and we all have explicit biases. And the explicit ones we can change. Implicit, there's data out there that suggests we can change them. I don't know if I believe that or not, but that goes back to nurture over nature and all the other psychological topics that I probably won't delve into. But anyway, I definitely think it's important to talk about the conversation, get down to understanding who the person is you're talking to, and more so than anything, understanding motive. Mm-hmm. What is the motive of the conversation? I guarantee you at the end of the day, just about whoever you talk to, who you disagree with or who you agree with, and I've heard topics on both sides. Let's talk about, let's just bring up a hot topic, gun control and talking about Parkland, right? Both people on, your left and your right or front, center, wherever you stand on the issue of gun control as it relates to the Parkland incident, we all want the same outcome. I can't imagine anybody out there that doesn't want to keep kids safe.
Right.
So always look at the motive of the conversation. Where's their motive? Is their motive coming out of a good place? If it is, let's try to level with one another.
Right. You got to try to find that equal ground.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is people are going to one extreme or the other.
And
they're
it's
not
gotten a lot
sitting
worse
down to
nowadays.
compromise. Yeah. It's getting real bad.
So, and that's, again, I think that is one of the driving motives of this podcast. Not to mention, I want a soapbox, so I want to be able to talk about things that I don't hear addressed, and that's exactly why we put the email out there. Like I said, that email is for anybody to let us know what you guys want. If you guys want certain topics, interested in ad time, I think we're going to talk it over with Eric. We're going to do some free ad time for the first couple podcasts. Yep. So if you businesses are listening, you guys have some small businesses in the North Carolina area, the Triangle, Clayton, Smithfield, the surrounding local areas. Let us know. Reach out to us. Send us an email. And we'll definitely get back with you guys and talk about what we can offer. And then we'll be all over the place with topics as it relates to millennials, but definitely the small business spotlight is something we're definitely going to focus on. So if you guys want a small business spotlight and you want to reach out to us, I don't know, maybe for free dinner or something, we'll definitely partake. No, on a serious note, though, if you want to invite us in to check out your business, utilize that email. This will give us an opportunity to reach out to you. Also, mailbag. If you hate my guts, please just let me know. Tell me. I don't care. I might read it and ignore it, especially if you tell me you hate my guts. But Eric, same way. Yeah. I'm sure he wants to hear back from everybody.
Whether good or bad, feedback is feedback, and we need all we can get.
Absolutely. And I'll just remind you guys, please share this podcast. Share it on YouTube. Share it on Facebook. Wherever you guys can talk about us. Get us out there. We're new into the game. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. We have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. We're going to have a couple guests, so a couple of people we work with. We're also going to reach out a little bit further than that. Probably have some business owners in here to talk to. We're going to talk some subjects on personal development in the future. So we're going to have some tech spots. So we might have some people in here that know the tech background. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting podcast. It may not be. Most likely won't be as boring as the one today. This is just an introduction today. So
work out the kinks.
Yeah, we're gonna work everything out. So bear with us, but please give us your feedback and remember to share and like us. We're gonna have a Facebook page up pretty soon. We're working on that now, and we're working on a website now.
Website will be soon.
Yeah, there's the Alternative Millennial is here to stay. If you don't like it, well, I'm sorry. But anyway, anything else you want to cover before we're out of here?
I think we're good for the day.
All right. Well, thanks, man, for showing up. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
And we will see you next week.
Yes, sir.